songs top the charts and disappear within months. Others never chart at all and become eternal. Ripple by the Grateful Dead never cracked the top 40. It was released as a B-side, buried on the flip of a single most people bought for a different song. Radio stations rarely played it, yet more than 50 years later, its lyrics appear on gravestones. Parents name their children after its imagery. Grown men weep when they hear its opening notes. This is the story of how a quiet folk song became the soul of one of America's most legendary bands. The year was 1970, and Robert Hunter was alone in London with half a bottle of Greek Retsina wine. The Grateful Dead's primary lyricist had been struggling with writer's block. But on this particular afternoon, something broke open. In a single session, fueled by that wine and whatever muse had decided to visit, Hunter wrote the lyrics to 3 songs that would become cornerstones of the Dead's catalog: Broke Down Palace, To Lay Me Down, and Ripple. Hunter later described the experience as almost mystical, the words flowing through him rather than from him. He was not trying to write a hit. He was not thinking about radio play or commercial success. He was simply channeling something that felt bigger than himself, bigger than any individual song. When he finished, he knew he had created something special, though he could not have predicted just how deeply these words would resonate with millions of people over the coming decades. Back in San Francisco, Jerry Garcia received Hunter's lyrics and immediately understood their power. Garcia added a melody that matched the words perfectly, gentle and unhurried, with an acoustic warmth that felt like a conversation between old friends. The song debuted live on August 18, 1970, at the Fillmore West, and even in that first performance, something magical happened. The audience fell silent, drawn into the song's gentle spell. The partnership between Hunter and Garcia represented one of the most remarkable creative collaborations in rock history. Hunter rarely performed with the band on stage, preferring to remain in the shadows while his words took center stage. Yet his contribution was immeasurable. He understood Garcia's voice, his phrasing, his emotional range, and he wrote specifically for that instrument. Garcia, in turn, understood how to set Hunter's poetry to music without diminishing its power. They communicated through their art in ways that transcended ordinary conversation, 2 minds working as one across distance and time. Ripple appeared on American Beauty, the Grateful Dead's 5th studio album, released in November 1970. The album arrived just 5 months after Workingman's Dead, marking an astonishingly productive period for the band. Both albums represented a dramatic shift from the psychedelic explorations that had defined their earlier work. Gone were the extended improvisations and sonic experiments. In their place was something warmer, more acoustic, more rooted in American folk traditions. The timing was significant. Both Jerry Garcia and bassist Phil Lesh had recently lost their parents, and that grief permeated the recording sessions. American Beauty became an album about mortality, about the passage of time, about finding meaning in a world that often seems meaningless. The cover art contained a hidden message. The title was designed as an ambigram, meaning that when turned upside down, the words American Beauty transformed into American reality. This was no accident. The band was wrestling with the gap between the idealism of the 60s and the harsh truths of the new decade. Ripple fit perfectly into this emotional landscape. The song acknowledged darkness without surrendering to it. It offered comfort without making false promises. It suggested that even in a universe without clear answers, there was still beauty to be found, still connections to be made, still paths worth walking. The recording sessions took place at Wally Heider Studios in San Francisco during September 1970, with engineer Stephen Barncard helping to capture the band's intimate acoustic sound. Barncard emphasized a live band feel through minimal overdubs, wanting to maintain the authenticity of the performance rather than polishing it into something artificial. The 16-track analog recording allowed for layered textures while preserving the warmth that made American Beauty feel like a living, breathing document rather than a sterile studio product. What makes Ripple so enduring is the extraordinary depth of Hunter's lyrics. On the surface, the words seem simple, almost childlike in their directness. But beneath that simplicity lies a sophisticated blending of Eastern and Western philosophical traditions that rewards repeated listening and contemplation. The song opens with an image that gives it its title, a ripple in still water when there is no pebble tossed and no wind to blow. This is pure Zen Buddhism, a koan designed to stop the rational mind and open the door to deeper understanding. How can there be a ripple without a cause? The question itself becomes the answer, suggesting that some things simply exist beyond our ability to explain them. From there, Hunter weaves in Christian imagery, particularly echoes of the 23rd Psalm with its references to cups that are empty and cups that are filled. The famous line about a road with no simple highway between the dawn and the dark of night carries the weight of countless spiritual traditions, all pointing toward the same truth. Each person must find their own way. No one else can walk your path for you. The chorus breaks from the verses into a haiku-like structure, another nod to Eastern traditions. This blending of East and West was central to the counterculture of the era, but Hunter achieved it with a grace that transcended any specific movement or moment. The result feels timeless rather than dated, universal rather than specific to any particular generation. Hunter was known for deliberately avoiding overtly religious themes or anything that could be interpreted as preaching. He wanted his lyrics to invite reflection rather than dictate belief. Ripple achieves this perfectly. Offering spiritual nourishment without demanding adherence to any particular doctrine. A Christian can hear echoes of their faith. A Buddhist can recognize familiar concepts. An atheist can appreciate the poetry without feeling excluded. This universality is rare in songwriting and helps explain why Ripple continues to resonate across such diverse audiences. Jerry Garcia's musical setting for Hunter's lyrics demonstrates why their partnership produced so many masterpieces. Garcia understood that these words did not need ornamentation. They needed space to breathe, room to settle into the listener's consciousness. His acoustic guitar work is gentle and unhurried, creating a sense of intimacy that makes the listener feel personally addressed. The recording on American Beauty showcases the harmonies that the Dead had been perfecting since Workingman's Dead. Garcia, Bob Weir, and Phil Lesh blend their voices with a precision that proved extremely difficult to replicate in concert. David Grisman's mandolin adds a touch of bluegrass warmth during the haiku sections, connecting the song to American roots music traditions while maintaining its cosmic perspective. The song's climax arrives with the final sing-along, when a crowd of about 30 people enters the studio to sing the melody in unison. This was not a production gimmick. It was a statement about what Ripple represented: music as community, strangers becoming family through shared experience. The moment captures something essential about what the Grateful Dead meant to their followers, something that transcended any individual performance or recording. Garcia later said that every song on American Beauty was a winner, but even he seemed to recognize that Ripple occupied a special place. He described his intention as creating a serene counterpoint to the band's typically high-energy jams, embracing what biographer Blair Jackson called Taoist simplicity to convey profound emotional depth through minimalistic means. The production choices on Ripple were deliberate and meaningful. The band resisted any temptation to add electric instruments or drums that might overwhelm the delicate acoustic foundation. Phil Lesh's bass appears sparingly, providing subtle support rather than driving the rhythm. Bill Kreutzmann's percussion is nearly invisible, allowing the guitar and voices to carry the emotional weight. This restraint required confidence, the understanding that sometimes the most powerful statement comes from holding back rather than showing off. Despite its obvious quality, Ripple never achieved conventional commercial success. It was released as the B-side to Truckin', which itself only reached number 64 on the Billboard Hot 100. Radio programmers did not know what to do with a song so quiet, so contemplative, so unlike anything else on the airwaves. It did not fit the format of top 40 radio. It was too gentle for album-oriented rock stations seeking extended jams. The Grateful Dead themselves seemed uncertain how to handle Ripple in concert. They performed it live only about 40 times over their entire career, a remarkably small number for such a beloved song. The harmonies proved difficult to execute consistently in a live setting, and the intimate atmosphere of the studio recording was hard to recreate in arenas and stadiums. The song appeared regularly in acoustic sets during 1970 and 71. Then virtually disappeared from the rotation for nearly a decade. When Ripple returned in 1980 and 81 during the band's brief revival of acoustic performances, fans greeted it with almost religious reverence. Then it vanished again until a single unexpected appearance in 1988, reportedly at the request of a dying fan through the Make-A-Wish Foundation. That story has never been officially confirmed, but it speaks to the kind of meaning Ripple held for Deadheads. This was not just a song, it was a companion for life's most profound moments. The rarity of live performances only increased the song's mystique. Deadheads who attended hundreds of shows might never hear Ripple performed in person.
Your steps alone.
Bootleg tapes of the early renditions circulated among devotees throughout the 70s, treasured for their sing-along choruses and the communal atmosphere they captured. Each recording became a precious artifact, proof that this moment of beauty had actually occurred, that the magic was real. Do you remember the first time you heard Ripple?
If your cup is full.
For many Deadheads, Ripple transcends the category of favorite song. It becomes something closer to a spiritual practice, a meditation, a prayer without specific religious content. The lyrics have been read at weddings and funerals. They appear on gravestones across America, the words offering comfort to grieving families and expressing hopes that somehow, somewhere, the departed have found their way home. One fan shared the story of losing his father when he was just an infant in 1990. His mother, only 25 years old and facing the impossible task of planning a funeral, chose to have lyrics from Ripple engraved on the gravestone. The words she selected speak to the song's central message about individual paths and the impossibility of following another person's journey. Decades later, that fan named his own son after his father, and the child has already heard Ripple countless times. Connecting 3 generations through a single song. These stories are not unusual in the Grateful Dead community. The band created something larger than themselves, a family extending love and acceptance as a way of life. Ripple became the purest expression of that ethos, a reminder that even when we cannot show each other the way, we can still offer companionship on the journey. The title of the song carries meaning beyond the lyrics themselves. Robert Kennedy, in a famous speech delivered in South Africa in 1966, spoke of how countless small acts of courage and belief shape human history. He described how each time someone stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lives of others, they send forth a tiny ripple of hope. Those ripples, crossing each other from millions of different sources, can build into a current powerful enough to sweep away the mightiest walls of oppression. Whether Hunter consciously drew from Kennedy's words remains unknown, but the connection feels significant. The Grateful Dead represented a different kind of revolution, one based on community and music rather than politics and protest. Yet their impact rippled outward in ways that continue to shape American culture.
Your steps alone.
The jam band movement they pioneered still thrives today. The culture of taping and sharing live performances that they encouraged became a precursor to the file-sharing revolution. Their model of building a devoted following through constant touring rather than hit singles influenced countless artists who came after them. In 2020, the Grateful Dead released an animated music video for Ripple to celebrate the 50th anniversary of American Beauty. The video offered stunning visual accompaniment to the song's cosmic themes, introducing it to a new generation of listeners who had not been born when Jerry Garcia died in 1995. The response demonstrated that Ripple's appeal remained undiminished by time. Rolling Stone magazine ranked Ripple at number 334 on their list of the 500 greatest songs of all time in 2021, a position it has retained in subsequent updates. That ranking places it alongside songs that sold millions of copies and dominated radio for months. The difference is that those songs often feel dated now, trapped in their specific moment. Ripple continues to feel fresh, its questions still relevant, its comfort still needed.
Then who's to guide you?
The album American Beauty itself achieved gold certification in 1974, platinum status in 1986, and double platinum in 2001. These sales figures accumulated slowly over decades, proof that the music found its audience through word of mouth and genuine devotion, rather than marketing campaigns or radio saturation. Each new generation discovered the album and passed it along to friends, creating an ever-expanding circle of appreciation that continues to this day. Why does Ripple matter so much? Why has this quiet B-side outlasted countless #1 hits? The answer lies in what the song represents. It captures the essence of what the Grateful Dead meant to their community, the sense that music could be more than entertainment, that it could be a path toward meaning in an often meaningless world. The Dead were never really about individual songs. They were about experience, about community, about the journey, rather than the destination. But if you had to choose one song to explain what made them special, Ripple might be that song. It does not show off. It does not demand attention. It simply offers itself, patiently waiting for listeners who are ready to receive what it has to give. The final line has become perhaps the most quoted lyric in the entire Dead catalog. If I knew the way, I would take you home. That admission of uncertainty, combined with that expression of love, summarizes everything beautiful about the Grateful Dead. They never claimed to have all the answers. They simply invited people to search alongside them, to create community in the midst of confusion, to find moments of grace in an imperfect world. Ripple never needed to be a hit. Hits come and go. What Ripple achieved was something far more valuable. It became immortal, not through sales figures or radio play, but through the hearts it touched and continues to touch, generation after generation. Which Grateful Dead song speaks most deeply to your soul? Have you experienced a moment when Ripple meant everything? Tell us in the comments and share this with someone who understands that the best music never really ends.